Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. Got a little succulent mug today. I apologize if my voice seems weird. We have some air quality alerts here because of the wildfires, and that's really fun. So I feel like I am on Arrakis as Paul Atreides, and it's super fun. Anyway, today's video is going to be something kind of different, kind of fun, if you like me ranting, because today I'm going to be talking about bookish pet peeves. That could be anything from dog-earing a book to actual tropes or something that I don't like. So, let's just talk about this. I have a little bit of a list, and these are just kind of ones that came to mind as I was thinking about this topic, and I added a couple more recently. So this isn't an all-inclusive list, but this is a start. Maybe I'll do a part 2 of this someday. Bookish pet peeve number 1 is rating books that haven't been released. And I don't mean if you've gotten an early edition of this. So I don't mean if you've gotten an audio arc, an e-arc, a physical arc. Any sort of advanced reader copies is fine. You should be rating it. That's your whole job when you get an advanced reader copy. I'm talking about when people either hate or love an author and they immediately rate the book that has been announced and no one has read it. That grinds my gears. I don't like it. I've seen this with, like, maybe Sarah J. Maas books. I just remember seeing it, so I'll give you the examples. I think one was a Sarah J. Maas book. It was announced and somebody immediately rated it 5 stars. It's fine if you love Sarah J. Maas, and it's fine if you know you're gonna love the book. I will probably love the book, right? But I think it's so unfair to rate books you haven't read. I think it's so unfair. I think it's unfair to the author. They probably like it if it's positive. I think it's unfair to readers. I think it's unfair to platforms. I think it's unfair to awards. I hate it. I also, on the flip side, think it's super unfair to rate books if really negatively, like 1 star or negative star, or just post something awful if you also haven't read the book. So like preemptively being like, I hate Sarah J. Maas and rating it 1 star. That's ridiculous. Like, let's not do that, everyone. Why are we doing it both ways, both extremes? I don't like, and I don't understand why we do it. And I wish people wouldn't do it on Goodreads. It's fine if you want to shelve it and you want to put a comment where you're like, oh, I'm so excited, can't wait for this book to come out, pumped. But don't rate it. You can tell this really bothers me. It bothers me. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's Chris Evans' vocal stem. Anyway, very much on the same vein, another bookish pet peeve I have is rating books you've DNF'd. Now, obviously, you DNF'd the book for a reason, and you probably didn't like it, right? You hated it, or it just was boring, or you just weren't vibing with it and you decided it's not the time, right? Regardless, you didn't finish the book, you don't know. I have DNF books and talked about my thoughts on them and said how I didn't like it. I think that's fine. It's fine to express your opinions and your thoughts and why you DNF'd it, but I still don't think it's fair to rate it because you don't know. Even if the book sucked all the way through, you don't know because you didn't finish it. And there's some sort of like completionist part of me that even though I've been getting a lot better about DNFing books, I don't think it's fair, and I also don't think it's like morally okay. And that's a really extreme way to say it, but like that's kind of what I'm getting at. I don't think it's okay to rate a book highly or poorly. I'm assuming if it's a DNF, it's always poorly. When you actually don't know. You don't know what the book is. That really frustrates me because you didn't read the book, so you can't count it towards your reading goals, and you have no idea what's in the end of this book or the middle of this book or however far you got. So it's not fair to rate the author's works on something you haven't read. And this is, again, coming from somebody that has finished books that should have probably been DNF'd and I didn't like them and I rated them lowly. But that's my prerogative because I finished the book. There are other books that I've DNF'd and I just said, DNF'd, don't have interest, don't know if I'll ever return. But I don't rate it. Okay? I just don't like it. And these are my bookish pet peeves. You can disagree with them all you want, but they're mine. Another bookish pet peeve is when a male or female narrator voices the other gender so poorly. I have examples of this. And there's something about it that really gets under my skin. Now, granted, narrators have a really hard job. I think I would love to be a narrator, but that doesn't mean I'd be good at it. I think it's a really hard job. You have to do a lot of voice acting, you have to be really talented, and you have to pull it off really well. I'm very forgiving when it comes to a lot of audiobook narrators because I listen to audiobooks all of the time. I know other people that just can't stand people's voices and they don't listen to as many audiobooks. They do a lot more physical or e-reading. I'm pretty forgiving when it comes to audiobook narrators. But there is this thing that happens where a female author will narrate a man's voice and makes them sound so weird and kind of ridiculous. It really puts me off because they don't sound like that. Men don't sound like that. Women don't sound like that. And it just irritates me. Or if they do, it's a very small population. So I think when they do this really poorly, it can come off really bad in the audiobook and it can really affect your experience. So the example I have for a female narrator voicing a male character really poorly was the All the Stars and Teeth duology by Adeline Grace. So I really liked the first book, actually. The second book was kind of weird. I really liked the first book. And I didn't really have a lot of issues with the narrator herself. However, there's one character, it's the female main character's best friend, or she grew up with him at least. So they're childhood friends. And he ends up on this quest with them. He's not the love interest. But she voices him, and he literally just sounds like this. And oh my gosh, why would you do that? And come on, guys, get together. It's ridiculous. It was just no one talks like that. That's how I would talk if I was doing a really silly, dubbed kind of voiceover. That's not how I would talk if I was an audiobook narrator trying to bring this character to life. Craziness. I was actually kind of shocked. It took me aback when I was listening to the audiobook. I remember it so clearly, and it was years ago. And I just remember being this is the voice we're going with? This is it? He sounds stupid. He sounds... And he's not. The character itself wasn't stupid, so it wasn't, accurate to the character either. But he sounded kind of stupid, kind of dumb, kind of all brawn, no brain type of a thing. But also just oh, come on, kind of childish. And that wasn't the character. That wasn't the character at all. So I remember just thinking it was so weird. That one sticks out for sure. And then on the flip side of that, when men do women's voices really poorly, what I can think of, I honestly don't even know if I could pinpoint the exact book. I think it was maybe the Renegades trilogy by Marissa Meyer. But I can't remember. I just remember it hitting me when the male narrator said it, and it just grated on my eardrums. And it's when they have the woman talk like this, and they're just talking like this, even though they're a super BA assassin, or they can definitely kick your butt and they just sound like this. And that's also ridiculous. And I'm not saying if her voice sounds like that in real life, if that's what the character sounds like, fine. But it's the way it's being portrayed, because I know I don't have a very high pitched voice like that. I'm not every female in the world, right? But if I am this hardened criminal, if I am this anarchist syndicate that's been underground, I would assume, maybe wrongly, that I don't sound like this, that I would probably sound more normal like this. That I wouldn't sound like a fairy princess in a Disney movie. But there is a little bit of an artistic interpretation, and I understand that, and it's very hard to differentiate male voices and female voices when you are a man or a woman. It's hard to do both. I get it. I understand they have a lot on their plates, but it still bothers me. It does. I can't help it. Or when they're really breathy. Irritates me. And again, I'm very, very forgiving when it comes to narrators and audiobooks. But those two things are irritating. The next one is when the author says something that's just ridiculous. You sit there and you go, huh? And it takes you out of the reading experience in the book. And you're just what just happened? I can't stand it. So let me explain, because this needs a lot of explanation, I assume. I was reading a book, obviously. And in the book, spring was nearing. The season spring was nearing. And one of the characters, like the author that was writing this, said, oh, and they heard the birds and the sounds of spring, etc. And they hadn't heard them in months. No season. What do you think happens after winter? Like, what? And in this world, it was normal seasons like that, like winter, spring, summer, fall. So what do you expect to happen? It skipped, like, to fall again? Like, I don't... There was something about that. I just remember it so vividly, and I was like, what the heck is that? What do you mean? Of course it's spring. You just established that spring is coming, and then you're like, oh, I hadn't heard these sounds in months. Of course you hadn't, because it was winter. My goodness. I just remember thinking, yeah, no duh, Sherlock, like, what? Another one, not as visceral response from me, but I remember another one. I think this one is actually a book I really, really like. Practice Makes Perfect by, it's the Rome, Kentucky series. Practice Makes Perfect. Sarah Adams, by Sarah Adams. When in Rome, book 2, Rome, Kentucky. The love interest is a tattooed bodyguard, so he's got like a full sleeve of tattoos. Mine's not a full sleeve, but he's got a full sleeve of tattoos. And she talks about his fully healed tattoos. That's important. Fully healed tattoos. And they're like talking one night, and she like starts touching his arm, and she talks about how she can feel the ridges of the ink in his arm. Now, if you know anything about tattoos, you know that a fully healed tattoo, one that's not like scarring or healing and is like scabbing, it feels like skin because it is your skin. You don't feel like, if you look at this right here, this doesn't, I can't touch it and be like, yes, this is a tattoo outline, because it feels like skin. I think some of that is just poor research on somebody's part, or their preconceptions of something. I don't know. Either way, that's not how it works. And I remember just being like, what? No, that's not true. That's not how that works. That's not accurate and wrong. So I remember even just being so upset about it and thinking about it for so long and like touching my tattoos. Anyway, I don't like that. I don't like it when authors say something ridiculous that they think is like so profound or like important or accurate in a description, and it's just not. It's just not. It's not even true. This next one, I'm sure a lot of you have very similar bookish pet peeves, by the way. I'm not saying I'm the only one that has ever had these. But the next one I think a lot of you will appreciate, and that's when books aren't the same height. There's something about this that I'm legitimately want to ask publishers, like, do you hate me? Do you want to see me suffer? Is this a prank? Am I being punked? Like, why would you do this? Like, there's no other explanation to me other than you hate me. And you're filming me and pranking me because you want to see my extreme reaction to this that I know is unreasonable, but it still happens, okay? I wish I wasn't like this. I wish I didn't care about my books matching, but unfortunately, I've been in this world too long, and I do. Let me get some examples for you. Ugh. Exhibit A. That's gonna be really hard to get these completely lined up. As you can clearly see, even though they're still a little bit uneven, the second book in the series is much taller than all of the others. Why? Who knows? You know, why wouldn't it be? Also, the third and fourth are a little bit different as well. I can't even compare to the first because the second is just so glaring. But the fourth is a tiny bit shorter than the third. And then the spines also, most of them match despite the ginormous height difference of book 2. Book 1 is vastly different in the layout. And then in the second books, the Grand Central Publishing changes, and that just kind of goes away. And it's just infuriating because I think I bought them all as they came out, so it's not like It's not like they were just different editions or what. No, just all regular, normal editions of the first printing. And they're, again, look at book 2. How does that not make you want to freak out and die? And I know I'm not the only one that thinks that. I know there's many of you that agree. But that one in particular seems especially heinous. It's like they just want you to, it's like they want to watch the world burn, you know? Another pet peeve of mine is if the book has no resolution, or the resolution is a cop-out. Again, example time. One of the ones, I think I've started ranting about this book recently, The Starless Sea, because it was the worst book ever. But there is no resolution to that book. If you read it, it's just like a fever dream. I kind of feel that way about if something gets a little too whimsical and it doesn't actually wrap up the story for you, you don't actually know what happened. I hate that. I hate when there's no resolution to something. I want it to be wrapped up. Even if I don't like what happens, even if you tell me, and then they lived in this village and they lived out their lives, or and then they lived in this village and the story ends. That's something. Like they were together, they were in this village. Great. Evil was vanquished. I don't care. But when it's just like, and we don't know what happened, I'm like, what do you mean? You're the one that's telling me the story. So how do we not know what happened? Did you just decide you didn't want to tell me? Because that's what it feels like. And I don't vibe with that. You better give me an ending. Tell me how it ends. I don't want none of this nonsense of like the reader gets to decide. No, the idea, if I wanted to decide I'd be an author, maybe I will be someday, but if I wanted to decide I'd be an author and I'm not, I need you to tell me. And also on the cop-out portion, this is very particular to a trilogy that I read that I've ranted about to my best friend particularly, but also to several people, and I'm getting mad thinking about it. And I don't want to spoil it for you. So I'm not going to talk about which series this is, but in this series, in said series, there is a love triangle. Okay? People like that trope, people hate that trope. I'm kind of indifferent. If it's done well, I like it. The first book, loved. Second book, mid, didn't really like it that much. Was a little bit scared of how the third book was going to go. Third book comes around. Scared how it's going to go. Started getting pretty good, and I was like, okay, I actually really like this. This is fun. I'm enjoying it. And then, after building up this love triangle, right? I was convinced one of the characters was going to die. I was hoping for that, honestly. After building up this love triangle for 2 books, we get to the third book, right? Okay. And just when you think the character has chosen who she's going to be with, they throw in a bunch of stuff in the book that was nonsense, and she chooses both of them. There's a handful of times I've been so mad reading a book. This is one of them. And it's not because that was the decision. You're right? It's not because they decided to be a throuple. That's not even the reason. The reason is that the author pitched this love triangle and this plot device and this issue that needed to be resolved. You got to pick somebody, right? Or something has to happen that it's picked for you. But instead of that, it was a cop-out and it was just both. I was furious. I got rid of the books. I'm so mad that I just felt like I wasted years of my life on this series for that kind of resolution. And I didn't like how the other plot points wrapped up either. I was so mad. I was so disappointed. And if I wasn't so invested in that issue being resolved, I think I would have been okay with it. But because it was such a big issue that I was waiting for the resolution for years, I was so mad. So I don't like that. I don't like it when there's no resolution, or when they do a resolution cop-out like that. No, make them choose. Or if a character dies, don't bring them back. Like, ooh. Okay. I'm getting really into this, okay? These are things that bother me. Next, pet peeve is when male authors can write stupid women who are degraded into a book, and that's real fantasy. But a woman author writes compelling characters of both genders, and that's not, because it's romance. Give me a break. Do you mean it's consensual and legal? Sure is. I could talk about this for so long, and it makes me so mad. And I rant about this to people all the time, and I could talk about it for a long time. But there are so many fantasy books, high fantasy books written by men that are beloved and hyped and popular for a reason. And in those books, there's romance. Many times there is a romance. And if there's not, also fine. But a lot of them have romances. The Witcher has a romance. Many, in fact, if you look at the early stories of Geralt. And he talks about how Yennefer smells of gooseberries all the time, to the point where it's lilac and gooseberries are imprinted in my brain. But it's high fantasy, right? Patrick Rothfuss writes I'm gonna butcher this a little bit because I will be honest, I have not read it, but I've had some stuff spoiled for me because I didn't know if I wanted to read it, so I kind of dug myself into that. And I don't want to read it, especially when he's not gonna finish the books, probably. But like a 15-year-old boy that gets entangled in a romantic relationship with a fairy. And we could talk about like the immortal versus the age thing. That is a weird factor that's in both of these scenarios with male and female authors, with romantasy, high fantasy, whatever. But that is gross. That is gross. He is a minor. And this older woman is like, yes, let's be together. But that's not romantasy. No, of course not, because it's a man writing high fantasy that's just so elevated from everything else. There's other books, high fantasy books I love. The Master of Sorrows, that series. In it, again, 17-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid. Love the story so far. But there's a woman character that comes into this scene, and her only purpose is to seduce and trick and somehow be a villainess. I don't even know how, really, honestly, but her whole purpose is that she's going to trick and seduce him, and she's an older woman, like a 30-year-old woman, whatever, to a 17-year-old boy. I think in that particular scene, she doesn't know how old he is, but he's a kid. I think anyone would figure that out. And again, this is written by a man, and I'm just like, is this like what you wanted to happen to you, and that's why you're writing in fantasy books? Seems a little weird, but anyway. And yet, still not romantasy, right? So why, when a female author writes a high fantasy world, and she does a lot of world building and spends a lot of time developing the characters, the world, the creatures, all of that stuff, and yet there is a plot point that is romance with two of the characters, suddenly that's romantasy. That's not high fantasy. That's not real fantasy. What do you mean? They're also writing adult content. They're also doing a lot of world building. They're also talking about dragons and stuff, and the romance of the book. If the book is like this thick and this much is the romance portion, why is it romantasy? Why isn't it just fantasy that has a romantic element like all of the male authors? Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings has romance in it, several of them, done so well. I particularly like his because they're not degrading of women at all. They're empowering of women, and they're so sweet, and the relationships in those books are beautiful. but it's not romantasy. It's high fantasy. He's also the father of fantasy, so we can give him a little bit more of a bye. But the point is, male authors can write romance inside their fantasy books, and they're still considered proper high fantasy without some sort of stigma. But if women do the same thing, it's romantasy. So, you can tell I feel very strongly about that because I do. And I don't, even if is a lot of the times when the romance is written in the high fantasy that's written by men, even if I like the world in general, I don't like how the women are treated and written about. And it's upsetting that that's the bar that people think needs to be upheld, when in fact, I think it's just non-consensual, predatory, abusive most of the time, and frustrating. So, how about we level the playing field a little bit with that? And the last bookish pet peeve I have today, since I ranted about that one for a long time, is when a character misses something glaringly obvious. Glaringly obvious. Honestly, I know this has happened recently and I couldn't think of the book particularly, but I think it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I have this huge secret and no one has ever found out about this secret. And also, this random person just stumbled into my life and I don't know a thing about them, but we're besties now and I'm gonna share everything with them. Or it's like when you're reading the book and you're just screaming at the character, they're like, oh, so-and-so has a dagger. I wonder why. So-and-so has a bottle that looks really suspicious. Couldn't imagine why. And then they get like poisoned in the next chapter and you're just like, you are an idiot. Like what? Your self-preservation, non-existent. Survival instincts, it's like a rock. Where is your brain? That's the stuff I'm talking about. Not like the character being tricked, not like, whatever. We all have issues in life, figuring things out. But I'm talking about when it's like, everyone knows. Everyone in this situation would know, and you somehow don't. You dumb. Like, what are you doing? Or, kind of like the secret thing I mentioned, when they're talking about a secret that no one can know about, no one can find out about, lest horrible things befall you or the world, but they're like, you know where a great place to talk about this secret is? Let alone talk about it, so which you shouldn't be doing out loud ever. You know where a great place to have this conversation is? In a public hallway, where anyone could walk by and hear me, or like hide behind a corner and hear me. That seems like a fantastic idea. I get so stressed in those situations. I'm like, shut up. If you shouldn't be talking about this, why are you in like a school cafeteria having a hushed conversation in the corner? No. And it's not even hushed. They don't even talk about them whispering. Oh, you're in a hallway? No one goes through those. Like, what? It's ridiculous. It really, it stresses me out because I'm like, no, stop talking about it. And sometimes the author lets that pass. Like, that actually is okay. Like, no one heard them. It was fine. And sometimes they're like, oh, I heard you in the hallway. And I'm like, yeah, because you're a freaking idiot. And you were talking about a secret that could, ruin the whole world. And you just did it in a public hallway all willy-nilly. What are you doing? We can use just a modicum of your brain cells. Can we just use, a portion of your brain to figure that out? Any sort of portion would do. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And that irritates me. That's one of those things where I'm like, how did you get this far in life and survive? Is it your first day on Earth? It must be. Well, thank you for listening to me rant. Hopefully this was enjoyable. I know I enjoy ranting on occasion, and I also enjoy listening to other people rant on occasion. So hopefully you enjoyed it. If you would like, I would love to know one of your bookish pet peeves. If you want to leave in a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, but that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.